Hello architects and welcome back to another RPG Architect tutorial. My name is Bert and today we're going to be building out our user interfaces. So things like our message box window, our main menu where you equip items, use items, check character skills or stats, that kind of thing. And we're also going to briefly touch on building out our battle user interface. So let's go ahead and jump into it. There's a few things we got to cover. I'm going to hit F8 to open up our database. And if you're not there already, scroll down on the left side to the user interfaces section. Now we're going to be creating a few of these. So I'm going to resize this to 10. You don't have to do that. You can do just one for right now and then add them as you go. But when you create a new user interface, you'll see a few different boxes here. The top left, this is where you will start to define things like our name. So this one we're just going to call message box. That's what we're going to be working on first. You could define the user interface type. You can set up local data like switches and variables to be associated with said user interface. You can set up scripts to run when the interface is loaded or unloaded, or to keep going throughout the stay of the interface. You can also set up transitions here. And then also, depending on what kind of user interface type you set, there's more settings down below here. So you see we're set to overlay, so we can set context for the overlay. But if we were to switch it to message box, and we scroll down, we have different options down here. So just keep that in mind as you're building your stuff out, that there are options down below on this left side. So as I said, we're going to be starting off with a message box. So we'll go ahead and set it to that. Then we're going to come over here to our next section here, the element section. This is where we add in different items and elements to display in our UIs. So if we hit this plus button up here, we get a list of options. We have compass list, folders, gauges, lists, panes, pictures, sliders, templated lists, and text. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a couple of these, knowing how I want my message box to look. A message box obviously is going to need like a background window. It's going to need like the little window to pop up and then display the text. So what we need is a pane. Think of it as a window pane. For my message box, I also want the speaker's name to display, so I'm going to need a text element. I also need another text element to display what's actually being said. And then lastly, for this individual message box, we are going to add a picture, because I want to display the character's portrait. So I'm just going to go ahead and add these four for my particular message box. So let's come back up to the top. I'm going to go through and name these. We'll call this pane. I'll call this one header, call this one body, and then we'll call the picture element portrait. So let's start from the top here. We have the pane element. Now you can see whenever you click on any of these, you'll get different options changing down in this bottom left window. This is where all the settings are for the individual elements. And depending on what the element is, you'll have different options. Like you see with text, you'll have font options, that sort of thing. So we will touch on those as we go, but just try to acquaint yourself with the different options that are available to you in this bottom section. So with the window pane, one of the first things we have available is our setting up our appearance. So we are going to go to this background section. This is where we define the image that we will use for our window pane. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit the three buttons to the side. This opens up our resources folder. Now I've already got some stuff imported in that I want to use for this tutorial, and I showed you guys how to do that last time. If you don't remember how to get to your own assets in, just click on this folder up here, go to your content folder and drop anything you want into the appropriate folder. So we got some stuff in our UI. I made a new thing called menu buttons. These are going to be the images we're using today. So just as a quick recap there, let's go back into our database, go to our pane, open up our resources folder. And I want to use this guy here, blue icon pane. And when I selected that, the color changed up here in the preview window. That is because our image is basically filling up the entire preview window. So with any element that you add, you're going to want to adjust the position and the size. So at the bottom of pretty much every one of these elements, you'll see a position section where you'll find relative X, relative Y, relative width, and relative height. By adjusting these, for example, we'll set relative width to 80%, you can see the pane has now shrunk down. Let's set our relative height to something like 30. We now have a much smaller window, and then we can set our relative X to 10, kind of center it up, and then our Y down to like 45, maybe a little bit lower. You can use your mouse wheel to scroll. Way to think of it is, if your relative width is 90, then you need to make up that other 10%. So I'm gonna have it moved in 5% here. So I have 5% on this side, 5% on this side, and this is the 90. Something about like this, just adjust these values to get the window positioned how you want. You do not have to use these relative positionings if you want. If you want to like set hard values, you can uncheck this and then use these fields here. You can also set margins for the individual elements. I like using the relative stuff. It's pretty easy. It's pretty straightforward. That looks pretty good to me. So that being said, we do not need to set context for this because it is just the window pane, but that option is there available to you. And if you have your window pane set up and you're not quite feeling the color, you can use a color mask to adjust it even further if you'd like. We'll go ahead and add a few more elements in before we go crazy with that, or you can use the hue shift option as well. And last thing I'll show here is the strategy. So there's component and stretch. If you use stretch, it kind of takes the original image and stretches it out. I like to use the component option because it treats things as like a 9 slice image. So it slices it up into 9 individual components and then moves and adjusts them around to keep the basic feel of your original image intact. However, there are some situations where you might want to use stretch, okay? All right, next up, we're going to move to our header element. Now we need to set up a font. There is a font already loaded in by default with RPGA. So if I type in name here, you'll see the element is populating in the top left here. But if I want to use a different font, I have to come over here to the left to font families, hit resize. We're just going to add one in here, and I'm going to call this one Tiny because I'm going to use a font called Tiny but Serious. So hit OK on that. You can also define the bold, italic, and bold italic fonts if you want. This is actually a pixel font, so if you check that, you can then adjust the alpha clamping. So that means you can kind of helps you to adjust the anti-aliasing to get like a really crisp pixel font. So I think something about like that will be fine. So let's go back to our message box, our header, and set our font family to Tiny, and you can see it changed up there. We're going to adjust the font size, something like 36. You can adjust your horizontal and vertical alignment. This will help you define different starting places. So if you set it to end or middle, you can see it kind of jumps over. And that way you have to do like less when you're positioning down here. You know, if you start in the middle, but you just want to move it over a couple of percentages, you can do that. I think start is fine. I think these by default are fine. You can check word wrapping here if you want the text to fit cleanly on multiple lines. You can adjust that. We could set up a drop shadow here, but before I do that, I want to put it into position on my window. So let's go ahead and drop it down just like we did before with the pane. And since this is just going to be the name header element, we don't really have to do a whole lot more. We can adjust the color too, as we did before with the color masks. So if we wanted something to be like maybe a yellowish color, I don't remember what game it was. I guess it was Legend of Dragoon had the yellow names, and so that's what I always tend to default to. So we'll go ahead and set it up as yellow there. Maybe make the font a little bit bigger. That's good, 40. And let's set up our drop shadow. So click the drop shadow button. You could click here to set your color. So you have to turn the alpha up so that the drop shadow is actually visible. And then you can use these values to start offsetting, and you can see there's kind of a little drop shadow happening here. If you go way crazy with it, you can have it drop down way far, but let's just do something like that for right now, okay? So now we need to set up our body text, and we can do basically all that again, or we could just copy our header, paste it. Let's get rid of this old body one, and then let's just rename it body, because now we have 2 of these name elements, right? So all we have to do essentially is drop the relative Y on this one down to another spot. We don't want it to say name, and we need to basically simulate a full body of text here. So what I'm going to do, first I'm going to change my font back to white because we want the main message font to be white. We can keep our drop shadow, but there's a few methods you can do here. We need to fill up this whole window pane with text to position. We need to fill up this whole window pane with text to tell the engine how far the messages go, right? So one thing you can do is you can, under this text field, you can type 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. My preferred method is to hold down the A button and have the text box scream into the void. Now, when I do this, I'm actually going to turn use word wrapping off because, as you can see, the text disappeared and I need to see it to be able to set my size appropriately. But if I uncheck this, you'll see the text box reappears. So let's do something about like that. That's probably a bit more than I need to do. And then let's scroll down to the bottom and let's set our relative width and height. Now, if I drop this down to about 70. That gives me 4 lines here. But it looks like I actually need to go more because I need to check and make sure things don't go below the bottom of this window too. So let's add some more screams. Get it to go past that point. There we go. And now I need to adjust this. So it should be pretty low down. I'm just going to use my mouse wheel and scroll down basically until that line disappears. There it goes. So right at 32% for this particular sizing, that disappears. Now, whenever we have dialogue, it will fit within this constraint here. Okay. And if you wanted to set up a sound effect for when the text is typing essentially on the screen, you can do so here with character sound. Just click the 3 dots. We have a few sound effects from one of my packs in here. I'm going to be using the sound effect cursor 2. It's one of the sound effects I provided to RPGA. Any of these sound effects, you can pan them to the left or to the right here. If you want to adjust the pitch, it's on a scale between -1 and 1. So you can do anything. You can do -1, you can do 1, or you can do anything in between. So I'm going to do -0.5. This is what we're going to be using. Now let's drop the volume down some. And if you don't want the sound effects to play simultaneously, like over top of each other, you can click this, and so the sound effect will have to end before it plays another one, okay? And now that we have this in place, and before I move on to our next element, I'm going to go ahead and turn word wrapping back on. I'm also going to set a character delay here. This is how quickly the characters type out, how fast the text types, basically. I'm just going to do something quick, like 10, okay? And then last thing I want to set up for this message box is going to be our portrait element. So go to portrait, and here we can set up the image and the sprite, but what we want is we need this to be based on whoever's talking. So I'm actually going to scroll down to right here and do is linked to UI context. I'm going to set character, and then up here you can see image and sprite have use template available now. We're going to hit use template on image. I'm going to type in portrait model. You can see it auto populates, and now we just have a giant red screen. And so this is the preview that we have to resize. So as with before, let's scroll down to our position section, and let's go ahead and size this down. Something like that maybe, and we actually probably should go back to our header and our body text and move those over just a touch, just to give it a little bit of breathing room. Just the fine-tuning stuff, you know, you get your stuff into position how you like. There you go. That looks pretty decent. Okay, and that's almost everything we need to do. The last thing I want to set here is on our left side, we're gonna scroll down. And remember, as I said earlier, when you set your user interface type, you get different options. On the message box options, we have header, body, and portrait elements. And so you probably already know where I'm going with this. Click this, set our element to header, set this to body, and set this to portrait. And now the engine knows which one of these is which whenever we call it in different scripts and whatnot. Okay, so let's hit apply. Okay. Let's create an entity real quick that calls this dialog box. So if you right click over here on scripts, go to message, display static message. Here you have a message template box. And if you select our message box, there we go. And here we can type in the character's names. So let's put in Locke. Let's put in, hey, Bert, you're doing a great job with these tutorials. Just something random to throw in there. And then we can define the character's portrait here as we've done before. So we bring up our resource window here, our resource folder. We'll set 144 by 144 because that is the height of these frames. We'll just choose this guy for the portrait. And really quick, I'll set up a sprite model over here. So now we have a little character to talk to. All right, let's run it and see how it looks. All right, so there's our guy. We're gonna go over and talk to him. There he is. You're doing a great job with these tutorials. We got the word wrap on so it doesn't break up this word or anything. It moves down to the next line. Very cool. Looks great. We had the words type out too at that 10 millisecond interval. Very cool. So next up, let's start to build out our menu. So we're going to go ahead and name this menu. We're going to change our user interface type to menu. Let's go ahead and scroll down to context. Let's set the context to active party because we want the menu to display the current members in our active party. So we're going to be trying to recreate the menu style from Breath of Fire 3. That was what the community voted on. And one thing I found is that if you are trying to recreate a menu from a game you loved or some kind of iconic menu, you're trying to do Final Fantasy 7, Breath of Fire 3, whatever it is, you can actually take a screenshot of said menu and then add it as a picture, just as a reference point, right? So we're going to go to picture elements. We're just going to call this reference. I'm going to add the image. I already have it loaded in my content folder. I got one here called menu. This is what we're going to be rebuilding. right here. Bam. You can see there's a few elements here. We have panes up at the top window here. We have panes for the characters themselves. We have a menu that you scroll through left to right for your different submenus and character info, blah, blah, blah. So let's go ahead and add a folder element so that we can keep everything we're going to build in this folder. Let's call this elements. You can break it into the sub elements too if you want. I'm just going to do one big folder for everything so I can turn it on and off and keep checking our reference. So I'm going to start from the very back. We're going to add a background. So we're just going to go picture. It is in our folder here. We'll call this BG for background. Let's add a image. I have this RPGA background image here we've used before. There we go. I want to make it a little bit darker, so we're going to add a color mask. Something about like that. Don't need to go too crazy with this part here. Let's go ahead and add our panes for our time, our money, and then this middle one here, which I'm going to call focused. So it's basically the same process that we did with the message box window. So I'm just going to go ahead and use the same one, and we'll skip ahead when I get those all in place. Okay, so there we go. I just set up the panes just like we did before. We just put in your background, set your strategy, your color mask if you need, and then you set your relative X, Y, your width and your height. I did that for here's the time pane. If you just want to match it completely, there's the time. Here's the money dimensions, and then the center one I'm calling focus pane. Because this is where the whatever menu list item we're on, whatever's focused, that will display here. And for that center one, because the Breath of Fire one is kind of a transparent window, I just kind of mimicked that by turning the color mask down and turning an alpha down, so it'll be a little bit transparent. So next up, we need to have the money and time display in here, so we're gonna add two text elements. Call the first one time, call the second one money. And with these, we'll use escape codes. So escape codes are basically codes you can type in to reference things like your time or your current money, that kind of thing. So, and it's real simple. We're just gonna type in under text, we're gonna do time and then a colon, and we're gonna do greater than, less than symbols. And you'll put your escape code in between these. So for time, we're gonna do playtime. Now this will display how much time has passed in game. So let's grow the size of this a little bit and let's pop this into place. Okay, there we go. We have our time in place, and you won't see it right now, but the time will be filled in right here. So now let's do the same thing for money. We're gonna go to money and we're gonna type in, just gonna do a $sign and then a colon just to show that, and then our greater than, less than symbols. And for this, I believe you can either type in money or you can just put a $sign again. So this will work here. And then we'll pop that into place over here on the side. These are my dimensions or my positioning. Okay, so this should work just fine. Next up, we're gonna get our menu items right here, the icons. We're gonna get those in place. We're gonna do this first before we can get the label in place. So let's go ahead and do that. We're gonna create a list element. Drag that into my folder. We're gonna call this menu list. And then a couple things I wanna do real quick is we're gonna set our orientation to horizontal because I want it to move horizontally across. You can set it to enable looping. So if you are on the rightmost item and then you hit right again, it'll loop back to the left. It's up to you if you wanna set that or not. I think it's fine. Down below, here's where you set your cursor appearance. So if you want like a little like finger pointing at the menus, you can set it up there by setting the type. You can have your pointer on the left, right, top, or bottom. We're going to set up a mask. So mask will be, the icon will be kind of glowing. It'll have a mask over top of it. And I just need a color for this because we're going to do something a little fancy. So I'm just going to set like an 8x8 square. Just choose this red color. This is not a forever thing. And we didn't see anything update just yet. We will see it as we add items in over here. And just below that, you can set your cursor sound effects. You can override your default stuff here if you uncheck that and set a specific one for each of them. Or if you aren't sure where to set your default sounds, it is over here on the left under System, Audio Configuration. This is where you set your default sounds that can be used throughout your game. So let's go back to our user interface, menu list. If you had text items as your list, like say like in a Final Fantasy, you have down the right side, you have all your different submenus just listed out as text. You could define all that here, your font size, font family, blah, blah, blah. But since we are doing icons for this particular menu, we will not need that. And we will set up relative positioning and whatnot here. But first we need to add in some items to display our menu. So let's go ahead and add in one. We'll build that first, and then we will use that to build off the rest of them. So here is where you can either type in the item list name. You can see it populating down here. The red is the mask that we put in over top of it. but we will not be doing that. Let us use a sprite instead. So let me go to my UI menu buttons, and the first thing up is the item menu. That's what we're going to do first. So I'm just going to hit this button to select my full icon. I put together these icons really quick using a Final Boss Blues icon sheet. So just so you know, these are things I made for this tutorial specifically. Go ahead and hit OK on that. Now, if you've been following along, this might be what you get, and you can, if you click the box below here, use sprite only. Now only the sprite will be showing up. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and turn my mask off for right now while we get things in place so we can actually see our icon there, okay? Now we just have to get it into position over our reference point. So let's go ahead and do that. And what I'm going to do, actually, you may see there's positioning stuff down here on the individual item properties, but I am going to use the position over here on the left side because the following list items that we build out are going to be based off of this first one as well. So let's go ahead and just scroll over here. And actually, before I adjust these values, let me come up here to item appearance. There is a spot here, sprite horizontal and vertical alignment. I'm gonna go ahead and set both of them to start to get it up in the top left corner. And now I'm going to adjust these values down below rather than have it starting in the middle of the screen here. So let's just pop it into place. All right, so I got it over in place here. Now, before I continue on and make the rest of these, well, first off, I should probably name this. So let's call this item. And since we have used sprite only, it is not popping up text anywhere. That's just for our own reference point in the database here. Before I create the rest of these, I actually want to set up an effect. And so UI effects are something that was just added in RPGA. We have disabled, focused, selected, and unfocused. And basically what these do is that these will allow us to have different little animations for when you're moving through the menu. So what I want to do is I just want to set it up to where the icon kind of grows a little bit. It kind of like swells up when you are over it. You'll see how that is. So there's a few different sections here. So disabled, as the name implies, these are effects that will happen if the list item is disabled. So if you want it to be grayed out or something like that, you can set that up here. Focused is going to be an animation that plays before the selected animation. So basically the way you can think of it is this will play once and then it will move to this. And so if you create an effect, so we'll hit the plus button, there is a recycling checkbox here. If you have on your focused is recycling on and you have something on selected as well, the selected animation will never play because focused is looping over and over and over again. So basically what you want to do is have focused be the initial animation and selected be what you want to continuously play. And then unfocused is the animation that plays when the element becomes unfocused. So for right now, I'm just going to keep things simple. We're just going to do a focused and a selected. So for our focused, we are going to just use a color mask. I'm just going to leave it as white. That is fine. You can set it to be a grayscale if you'd like. That's probably good for disabled stuff. We're going to change the opacity just to 75, just to have it a little transparent. You have position effects you can do here, so you can offset the position of the icon, or you can adjust the scale. And I will be using both of these. I know with the size of my icons, after some testing, I found that this value will work for this particular example. And I'm going to set my scale to increase to 120%. Next, you have easing functions. So these are basically the way the animation will look. So there's different kinds. So an instant growth here. You can have bouncing animation, a circular animation, elastic, exponential, linear, or sinusoidal. Yeah, I'm not sure how to say that, to be honest with you, but that's fine. I'm gonna go with exponential, and each one of these you select will have different options. So bounce, for instance, you can set the amount of bounces, the elasticity, the gravity. Circular just has a mode in, out, or in and out, so on and so forth. We're going to go with exponential. We're going to keep the exponent at 2. I'm going to change the duration to 100. And this is fine for right now. And then below this, we actually have a couple other options. We have value modifiers. So you can check one of these boxes and then set up a value modifier down below. I have not messed with this too much yet, so I'm just going to point out that it is here. You can use image or sprite, text, or a template. We have that. And then you can also use switches as conditions. So I believe this will really come into play with disabled or enabled menu items, that sort of thing. But just to give you a basic example, we're just going to do the focused, and then I'm going to go to my selected effect, and this one I'm going to set to recycling because I want it to stay, the icon to stay enlarged while the cursor is over it. Okay, we're going to set up basically all our effects to the same as we did before. Offset -8, scale 120. Easing function, we're actually going to keep it at instant. I'm going to take the duration just 1 millisecond, so it's just there's no visible change there. Okay, that's all I'm going to do for right now. The reason I set this up first before the rest of our menu items is because this feature has just been added. It is still in its early stages, and right now copy and paste have not been enabled. So just to save myself some time and not have to copy or not have to recreate that effect over and over and over again, I thought I would just do it once for the item, and now I can copy and paste this list item and keep these effects in play. So we're just going to go ahead and copy and paste our item here, our list item, and you can see a new one populated here, but it looks like our first one disappeared. It's actually still there. So if I turn our mask back on, you can see the red square appears here. So this is where our first item is, and as we add things, we'll just copy and paste, they'll continue to populate throughout. So I'm just going to do that real quick. We're going to make the remainder of our items, and all I'm going to do is change out our sprite for the following menu item and change our name right here. So that's all I'm going to do. I'll fast forward and get through this process real quick for you, okay? Okay, so we have all our menu items now. They all have an effect on them. You can see though they're a little close together. So what I want to do, the reason I did this is because I want to scroll down over here in item appearance. You can add margins to your sprites. So they need a little bit of a margin on the right side. I'd say maybe 4 just to space them out. And then now doing that, I think I need to adjust our relative X again, maybe something about like that, because that way the leftmost icon will be just outside of this, the rightmost icon will be just outside of this, okay? All right, next up we're going to add our label for these menu items. So let's add a text element. We're gonna call this focused label. We're gonna set our size to 40, but now we need to tell our engine which one of these menu items our cursor is currently on. And the way we do this, we're gonna go back to our menu list. We have item focused here, and item focus is basically this is where the cursor is, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to do data manipulation. We're going to do change variable. I'm going to set up a local variable, so just something just tied to this UI, and we're going to adjust here. Let's resize, add a local variable. I'm just going to call this menu item name. You can call it menu item focus, menu item name, whatever, but we are going to set it so local variable menu item name equals, and we can use strings here. So I'm just going to type in the word item because that is what we're on. We're on item, and I'm going to do this for each one of these items. So I'm just going to copy and paste over to equip item focused, paste, change it to equip. Okay, so let me do that for all the menu items. Okay, so I got everything labeled, and now if we go back over to our focused label, we're going to type in an escape code here, so our greater than, less than, and we're going to reference that variable. And the way we do that is we're going to type LV, so local variable, and we're going to do a bracket 0 close bracket because the variable that we were using was local variable 0. Okay, makes sense? Now, because we're doing an escape code, you're not going to really see any reference point here. So one thing you can do is you can just type in something here. Like I'm just going to type just a line here. You can see it populates up there. If we set our horizontal alignment to middle, it will go ahead and pop it into the middle of the screen. And then we're going to go ahead and drop our relative Y down. I think about 7 or 8 is where these were at. So roughly about there, and then I'm going to take that line out just because we don't need that, okay? Makes sense? Last but not least, we're going to set up our character windows here. Now, we're going to set up a templated list, so add an element templated list. The difference between lists and templated lists is lists are just items that you can, like static choices you can set up. So things like your menu items, this is always going to be item, this is always going to be equipped, this is always going to be skills, blah, blah, blah. With a templated list, you're going to be referencing other points of the database. So who's party member number 1? Who's party member number 2? What are their stats? What is their name? That sort of thing. So if it needs to reference other parts of the database, you will use a templated list, okay? We're gonna call this one character info. We will keep this one vertically aligned. We're going to set template type to character. So the template, the things in the database we are referencing is our characters, okay? And a lot of this other stuff we have touched on in other sections, so we won't have to go over that. But first, we will need to add in some components. Last time I set up character windows like this, I just did essentially like I did with the time, money, and focus pane. I created individual panes for each character. However, there is a much cleaner, nicer way to do it, and that is just setting up your panes in your character info itself. So we are going to use a pane. We'll call this background pane, and we're going to select our blue pane like we have here. Now we have 4 windows up, and let's just get these into position. So now we'll move back over to our left. So in doing templated lists, check your item details relative width and height first before setting position, because as you can see there, it is 4 squares here, and we only want it to be 1 vertical column. So what we need to do is set our width to 100. That makes it into 1 column, and then we can adjust our height down to like 30 to get 3. So whatever look you're going for, if you wanted 4 columns, you would just set it to like 25. If you wanted 4 rows, you'd set this to 25, so on and so forth. The 4th row is not showing up here, but you can see there's space for 4th row. That's just as the other settings I have adjusted. So let's just go ahead and set width to 100, height to 30. Scroll down and set my relative X like 35. Just get my values in place here. Something roughly about like that. I got to be careful because I will sit here and tweak out on them, and I need to get I need to be moving forward. So I'm gonna get it roughly in that place, and then you can move over here and you can fine tune just a little bit more. I'm going to do something like that. I'm going to stop myself there because I get really in depth with setting up UI stuff. I just have a lot of fun doing it. So just to show you my item details, what I ended up with was relative width 100, height was 31, and then the position 28, 27, width and height 41, 75, and then over here on the background pane element itself, I have the height down to 93. That's just what I have to get this look right here. But we need to keep pushing forward because I will get caught on this all day. I'm going to go ahead and add, if you look at the reference, we have like a little section up here and a little section down here. So let's do the same thing. Add a couple more panes. We'll add another pane. We'll call this, name pane. Pick our image. Name pane, we'll get that into place up here, and then we'll do a stats pane to get that into place down here. And as I'm setting these up, only use the positions on your individual elements because you have basically the placement of the templated list. And so now as we go through and place things, we are just going to be using these values here. Okay. Okay, something about like that. We can turn off our templated list just to check our reference. It's pretty close. I also added a color mask on both of these new panes, so it'll stand out against the background. Obviously, if you have an image that is basically this window already pre-built, like for instance, it has the EXP level, all that stuff filled in. It just doesn't have the name and the level stats and the character portrait filled in. That's probably the even easier way to go because you just have to set that one element up once. So probably recommend doing that, but it is possible to set it up this way as well. So let's go ahead and add in the fields where our character names will be as well as their stats. So add a text element. Let's call this name. And then down below here, you'll see text. We're going to use template and type in name. And so since this is a templated list, it will know, okay, we're going to be looking at the name of the list item. What is it referencing? The character name, okay? As we set it, the template type over here. So let's get this into position. Next, let's set up the labels for this left side, and these will not have to use a template, so we'll basically just do a text element and then type in right here what we want that to be. So EXP, we'll call this element EXP label, and then just set that up for all stats you want. So we're going to do EXP, level, HP, and MP. All right, there we go. I got all our labels in place. Went ahead and added a color mask on each of them just so they stood out a little bit more against the background. Now we need to fill in the level, HP, and MP stats. So we're going to do another text element, and we'll call this one level value. I'm going to go ahead and up my size to 30. We're going to use a template, and we're going to type in statistics, and as you start to type it in, it will populate here. And now in this ending bracket, you just need to type in the formula name for that individual stat. So for us, it will be LVL. Now, where do I get this? If you remember, we'll go back over here on our statistics. When we were creating these, we have the formula name field. Whatever you type in here, this is what you're referencing. So for us, LVL, if I typed in level here and I tried to reference LVL over on our menu, it would not work. So just keep those consistent. So we're going to type in LVL, we're going to have HP and MP. That's what we're going to set up for all of these stats, and then we're going to pop them into place. So let me go ahead and do that. Okay, we got those all in place. Now we need to set up our max HP and MP over here on the right side. So I'm actually going to put like a little divider in here just by doing a text element and then just calling this divider and then a /, that'll be fine. Popping that into place. Okay, there we go. We got those into place, and I actually did two. I just did a line break here and added a second divider for our MP line just to save space over here. Now we're going to, let me just copy my HP value, paste this in as a new text element. We're going to call this max HP value. And all I'm going to do is change the statistic from HP to max _ HP. And the reason we can do that is because if we go back over to our statistics, HP and MP are set as store categories, and so automatically there is a variable called max _ HP, max _ MP created to reference these. Since you can have your HP deplete and then restore itself, those variables are automatically created. So if we go back to our user interface, we have our max _ HP, and we just pop that into place. So we're going to do the same thing for MP. Okay, so we got those in place. Also, one thing to note really quick, if you are doing this divider method like I did and you want your values to align in a certain way, you can also use this horizontal alignment. Think of this as like a justify center, justify left, center, or right. You can think of it that way. So just make a note of that if you want things to populate in a certain direction. Like if your HP stat is in the hundreds for the first part of the game, but then you get to the thousands, and where is that extra digit going to pop in? Just this can help with that. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so now we have all our values in place. Next up, we're going to add a gauge for our experience bar. Because if we check our reference again, that little red line below their name and above their level, that is their EXP. So let's go ahead and add a gauge element. Let's call it EXP bar. And the first thing I want to do is I'm going to set up a fill graphic, because we have start, end, and fill. And start and end are basically just if you want like a little icon or a graphic on the left or right side of your bar, you can set them up here. I'm not going to do that. We're just going to have a red bar as our fill color. So let's grab our swashbuckler red that we've used so many times before. Bam, there we go. Thank you guys for coming. Let's go ahead and resize that like so. And next we need to assign the EXP statistic to the bar here. So what we're going to do is going to be current value, statistics, EXP. And then for minimum and maximum, we're actually going to use the same thing, but we're going to type at the beginning of minimum, min _ and under maximum, we're going to type max _. Because like our HP and MP formulas, growth formulas like EXP will come with minimum and maximum variables to reference, okay? So there's that in place. And then the last thing we need here is the picture of our character. So let's go ahead and add a picture. Call this portrait. Under sprite, we're going to use templates, and we're going to type in portrait model, and then just pop this into place like we've done so many times before. All right, something about like that, and that should be us. We can go ahead and check this out and see how it looks. So actually, before we do that, we're going to come to our database. We're going to go down to general, and here under user interfaces, there's a main menu section. We have to set this to menu. This tells the engine what is our main menu, and that key is going to be default mapped to our escape key. You can adjust it here if you'd like under virtual keys menu. Oh, and I ran into one little issue when I ran the test just now. This mask, we actually need to set the alpha down on this a little bit. So let's go to our menu list, go to our color mask, turn the alpha down, and maybe actually let's make it more of a bluish color just to match with the theme of our overall menu. Something about like that maybe. That should work better. So let's apply, okay, and run that. Hit escape. There we go. And now we have our time displaying. We have our money displaying, which we don't have any cash. We can show that in a second. We have our level, HP, and as we move through the title or the label updates, we can hit right and go over here. We got our nice mask showing up over top. Very cool, very easy. Real quick, let's add an entity, much like this guy, this lock here. Let's have him give us some experience and some money so we can display those as well. So let's update his message. Here's some money. We're gonna right click, go to inventory, change money. Just give us, 400, just a random number. And then let's also have him give us some experience. So character, change statistic. Party by unique ID, so character in slot 0, statistic value experience. Let's have it be 400 EXP as well. And so we're gonna start off at 0 experience to level 2 is 1040. So let's see how that looks. Here's some money. Now we have 400 gold showing. Our EXP bar is filling up. If we talk to him again, now we have 800, our EXP bar is filled up, and if we talk to him a third time, we are now a level 2, our HP has gone up, we are at 1200 money, our MP has gone up. Very cool. Everything working as it should be, okay? Next up, I'm going to set up a couple of temporary menus to jump into whenever you select any of these items. I'm not going to go into full depth with building all of those out just yet, but I'm just going to show you how to basically link these up to the proper menus. So I'm going to copy this and paste it over to another slot. I'm just going to call this item menu temp. And the main reason I'm going to do that is I'm going to delete the reference, I'm going to delete the background, I'm going to delete basically everything except for the character info, mainly because I'm going to set up a pane that will move over top of this, and so I just need it for sizing. And I also found that I was running into a small issue when I didn't have that in place, so we won't worry about that now, but we'll just do pane, use our graphic we've been using, size it appropriately. Something like that. Let's go ahead and add in a text element, have it say items, make it nice and big, drop it into place. And then what I want to do, just to show you guys how to use these transitions, we have fade in, fade out, instant transition, and movement. So fade in and fade out, they are pretty simple. You just set the duration and the color you want them to fade in and to fade out. Instant is just as it says, but movement, you can set that, and then go to edit, you can set the duration, and you can set start and end positions. So I'm gonna go ahead and drop the time down to like 400 milliseconds. This is the enter transition. So I want it to start basically down here off screen. So I'm gonna set the relative start Y to 200, and then the exit transition, I'm also gonna set it to 400 milliseconds, and I'm gonna set the end to 200%, okay? So basically when it enters and it starts, it is going to start down here, and it is going to end at position 0, which is where we have it here, and then vice versa when we exit, okay? And then we're gonna link it up by going to menu, go to our menu list, item, execute. So basically when you're on a menu list item and you hit the confirm button is what execute is. We are going to go to user interface, open menu, and then we are going to select our item menu temp, and that is it. So we'll do that, hit OK, run it. Open our menu, we can move around, hit OK on the item, and bam, there it is. And then when I hit escape to back out, we go back to our other menu, okay? Very simple, very easy, very effective. And I'm gonna do that for the remaining menu items off screen for you guys. Last thing I wanna set up today is just the bare bones of our battle UI. We are going to be recreating something along these lines. And the reason why I wanted to show this is because we can utilize our compass list. So I've already gone ahead and set up a couple elements. It's basically the thing we just did in our menu. We have a templated list here for our character info. We have a pane that will pop up for our current selection, whether it be character or skill or whatever. But what I want to show off is how to set up a compass compass list like this. So add a new element, go to compass list, and this is much like a templated list. However, we can use different directions. And so we have defaults, north, south, east, and west, and then, northwest, northeast, southeast, southwest. And so we can achieve this same look by setting up some sprites to go along with it. So let me resize this. We're gonna go ahead and name things. Default will be center, so we'll say attack. North looks like it's skills. East is probably defend. Defend is a little shield icon. South is items, and then west is like an eyeball, so we'll use examine. Something like that. Scan, examine, whatever we'll end up doing there. But you can see the text filled in on the screen in like a little cross pattern here. But if we go to use sprite only on each of these items we just filled in, then those will disappear, and that's what we want to do. Now for each of these we want to add a sprite. So for default, our attack, let's go back to our menu buttons, go to we'll just use our equip icon again, the sword. North is skill, so we'll use our little skill icon. East is defend, I have a defend icon of a shield. South is items, and west is examine. We'll do this eyeball icon. Now we have those up on screen, and just like before, we just have to position them. So we will go to, let's actually name our compass list first. Let's say this is a battle list. We're not going to set up a cursor right now. We won't be able to test this until we get into actually building our battle system, but I just wanted to show that this is an option here. So sprite, horizontal alignment will go to middle, and then let's start positioning things. There we go, something roughly about like that. Here are the values I got. Relative X 42, Y 32, relative width 17, height 30, and I added margin top I just set to 1. This gives it a pretty good look here. Again, we won't be able to test this till we actually get into our battle system, but I thought while we were doing UIs, we might as well go ahead and set this up. Obviously, there's a lot more elements that we need to add in, but this should do it for today. It's already a pretty long video. This should get you guys started on setting up your menu, UI, your message box, all that good stuff. So thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, please be sure to leave a like, comment, and if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, it really does help us out. There's a lot of people we see come into the Discord who say, hey, I saw the tutorials, I saw this video or the update video, and I just had to pick up the engine. So it really does help us to get the word out. So thank you so much for the support there. If you haven't already picked up your copy of RPGA, it is still in early access, but we are about 90% of the way there to version 1.0. So be sure to grab your copy while it is still at this price point, because it will be going up once we hit version 1.0. But the engine is growing each and every day. It is very capable of creating a full game. It has been for quite some time now. So if you haven't picked up your copy, do so now. What are you waiting for? And of course, if you'd like to support me further, you can do so over at patreon.com/bitbybitsound. It helps me out a lot. It helps me to be able to create these tutorials and also to keep writing great music for you guys to use in your projects, whether it be an RPGA game or a YouTube series, podcasts, whatever it may be, live streams. It does help me out a lot. I write the music live Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday over on my Twitch channel. So come hang out, join us, see all the shenanigans. It is much appreciated. Thank you so much for the support. All right, that's going to do it for me today. Thank you so much for watching. You have been amazing. I have been Bert, and I will see you on the next one. Bye-bye.